Hi, Dr. Dolly. My name is Chip. My partner and I are both early career psychiatrists. We are in weekly psychotherapy and currently pay out of pocket for these sessions. We are also saving to purchase our first home in the next few years. Our high deductible insurance plan comes with an HSA account. Should we use the money from the HSA account to immediately pay off these sessions and save separately for a home in our money market account? Or pay out of pocket for the sessions now and pay them off in a few years using the HSA funds? Thank you for all you do, and we are both avid listeners of your podcast. Thank you.
All right. This is one of the downsides of the speak pipe format, right? You can't ask follow-up questions. You get the information you get, and you got to riff off of that. What advice would you give in this situation?
Okay, so this is so common. Okay, I have fallen into the HSA trap. And let me just explain first of all to make sure that everybody's on the same page of why this caller has a just a great understanding of the dilemma that he's in. So when you open an HSA, it's not like the old FSAs where you put money in and you lose it. HSA, you put money in, you get a tax deduction, and the government doesn't have any time horizon where you have to spend it. So you have an advantage to keep the money in there, particularly knowing that as long as you use it on health expenses, when you take it out, you pay no taxes then, so you owe no taxes. And then if you put the money in investments over time, you also don't have to pay capital gains tax when you take it out. So we call that a triple tax advantage. So what happens is you think, oh, this is great. I'll put money into the HSA, and that's awesome. Maybe one day I'll have this nice little nest egg in retirement. But then you start paying health expenses out of pocket. And I think that there's something that lights up in the brain that tells us like alarm, 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 like this is too much money. I'm having to pay up to $1,500 on my high deductible healthcare plan before my insurance kicks in, or in my case, $4,000 or $6,000. And so it feels so bad that you want to look to your HSA, even though you kind of have this vague notion that, it's kind of good to keep the money there. So this is what I would recommend to the caller and to anybody on here. If you have an HSA strategy where you're taking advantage of this triple tax advantage, you are essentially putting money into your retirement plan. It's part of your retirement nest egg. And so you really want to avoid using it as much as you can. And you want to keep funding it at the maximum levels that the government allows every year. And so what's difficult about this is that, yes, you then have to put those sessions, the costs, into your budget. And so the way I do it, and if this is helpful for folks, I create my own savings account next to my checking account. And I just auto deposit, $500 or more every single month into that account so that when my, kid has strep throat and we end up in the emergency room like we did last month and I get a bill for $1,000, then the money is sitting there and I'm less tempted to go out and use it. It's very, very difficult to move from the FSA where the government is like, you better spend this or you're going to lose your money, to this different system. And I think that's why our wires are crossing when we're not sticking to the course on the HSA. So if you can, I would say put off the savings on the house or lower the savings in favor of this HSA and stay that amazing course that you originally set out.
All right, I'm going to push back on this one a little bit because there's really two schools of thought here. First of all, we got to explain a few things with an HSA, right? If you take the money out before age 65 and spend it on something besides healthcare, you not only have to pay taxes on it, but you have to pay a big penalty. If you take it out after 65 and spend it on something besides healthcare, you don't have to pay that penalty, but you do have to pay taxes on it. If you take it out at any time and spend it on healthcare, then you don't pay a penalty, you don't pay taxes on it. But obviously, the longer you can leave it in there to benefit from this tax protected growth, the better. Okay, so there's really four things you can do with HSA money. And the first two are obviously worse than the last two. All right. The first one is take the money out and spend it on something besides healthcare before age 65. That's clearly a bad idea. Don't do that. A second option is to take money out after age 65 and spend it on something besides healthcare. Not ideal, but it's no worse than your 401k or your IRA. This is a stealth IRA for you. This is not a terrible thing to do with your HSA, but it's not ideal. Ideal is to spend this money on healthcare so you get the full triple tax-free advantage. So that leaves you the two options, right? And Sarah Catherine's preference is that you leave the money in there. Yes, you save your receipts so that any money you spent on healthcare, you can then take out later and spend it on a sailboat or whatever, tax and penalty free, right? But mostly you're trying to keep the money in that account and you're spending your taxable money or your general earnings, your cash flow on your health expenses. The other option is just spend as you go, and what you don't spend stays in there and multiplies over the years. This has the advantage of not having to keep track of all those receipts, right? Not having to worry about having this massive HSA in retirement that you're not sure what you're going to do with. Let me tell you about my HSA and why I think about this problem. I have a $160,000 HSA, $160,000 HSA, right? Because I've just been putting the maximum into it for the last 15 years and never took any money out. And I'm doing a kind of a crappy job keeping track of the receipts. Let's be honest. I've got receipts, but I don't know that I have all the receipts, right? I'm not doing a great job tracking them. And this is the worst account to leave to your heirs because when your heirs inherit your HSA, it is all taxable income at their ordinary income tax rates when they die, when you die in that year. It's all in 1 year, the whole thing. And so this is not awesome to inherit. So it's fine if you're charitably inclined and your plan, anything you don't spend on healthcare and retirement is to leave to charity. That's fine. But if that's not your plan, then you want to have this money spent before you die. And if you're starting to get a really huge HSA, it's okay to spend it as you go along. I don't think you should feel bad that you're using your HSA for what it was designed for. And it certainly is a lot less hassle than keeping track of all those receipts for many, many years because you might not have enough expenses in retirement to spend a $300,000 or $400,000 HSA in retirement. And then you end up with this less than ideal account to leave to your heirs. What do you think? Did I convince you, SC?
No, you didn't. So the biggest expense in retirement is healthcare. I mean, it is literally like one of the biggest factors, swing factors in budgets. So even if you didn't save your receipts, I think there's a really good chance that you would end up with enough expenses for an HSA. And it's so funny. It is pretty shocking to hear the amount in your HSA. I've got about 60 in mine. I thought that was a lot from doing this strategy. But yes, I mean, I guess there's at some point where maybe you stop saving into it uh, and
Well,
just
I don't know
use
if
it
that's
for
the case. There's
current.
no point in stopping saving, right? Because at worst, it's a stealth IRA, or you
Right.
use it for your charitable bequest. I don't think it's. I don't want to tell people don't put more money in your HSA. I'm just saying maybe it's okay to spend it on healthcare.
But saving your receipts uh, is not crazy anymore. So a lot of these companies do make it easier for you just to upload them. I actually have just an old fashioned file where I just throw them in and I just note when I paid them. But it's if you have like an easy to adopt system where you're not having to do anything really arduous, I also think that we believe in really good processes and systems that don't require much thinking at all. And so maybe adopting something like that could also help mitigate the risk.
Yeah, for sure. I need to systematize it better because your file idea seems great until you go back in there 5 years later and you realize all those receipts, the ink fades on them. So it's got to be electronic if you're saving receipts. You've got to scan them in or take pictures, keep a file on Google Drive or whatever. You got to have a system. I know some of the HSAs automatically build this into the HSA. I don't think mine at Fidelity does. I don't think they have a system for saving receipts, but I know some of them do. I think Lively does, where they help you save their receipts. But
Yeah. I think my old one at HSA Bank, I think allowed us to do that there. And now you have me freaked out. Now I'm going to go look at my oldest receipts and
yeah,
see if
you
they're
might be
starting to
faded.
fade.
Yeah, maybe I just don't do a good job taking care of receipts. This is an ongoing
Do you
issue
keep
for
them in
me.
the
But
sun?
yeah, I just lay them out on the driveway. I don't know why that keeps disappearing. But all right, let's get to our next question. This one is by email. And they ask, you won't like this, but I don't have a written financial plan yet. You're right, I don't like that. But surveys show about 50% of white coat investors don't actually have a written financial plan.
don't require much thinking at all. And so maybe adopting something like that could also help mitigate the risk.
Yeah, for sure. I need to systematize it better because your file idea seems great until you go back in there 5 years later and you realize all those receipts, the ink fades on them. So it's got to be electronic if you're saving receipts. You've got to scan them in or take pictures, keep a file on Google Drive or whatever. You got to have a system. I know some of the HSAs automatically build this into the HSA. I don't think mine at Fidelity does. I don't think they have a system for saving receipts, but I know some of them do. I think Lively does, where they help you save their receipts. But
Yeah, I think my old one at HSA Bank, I think allowed us to do that there. And now you have me freaked out. Now I'm going to go look at my oldest receipts and
yeah,
see if
you
they're
might be
starting to
faded.
fade.
Yeah, maybe I just don't do a good job taking care of receipts. This is an ongoing
Do you
issue
keep
for
them in
me.
the
But
sun?
yeah, I just lay them out on the driveway. I don't know why it keeps disappearing, but
The hosts of The White Coat Investor are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.